Live from the internet, this is the Crystal Chronicles, your Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia podcast. Welcome to episode 82, recorded on this December 26, 2019, the last show of 2019. Welcome everyone joining us on Twitch Video on Demand, on YouTube, and across our podcast services. You can connect with us on social media and hear all of our shows at tccpodcast.com. That's tccpodcast.com. I also need to update that because we do, and it will be in the show notes, and we will link it here as well, have an apparel shop for those of you in the United States who would like to sport some Final Fantasy Dissidia Opera Omnia TCC love. Feel free to check that out. That is a local store that is set us up with that. So embroid this. Thank you for help there. And go check out our TCC swag. Well, I hope you all had a happy holiday, and I hope you're all looking forward to a new year. I know I have had a good week, but we'll talk about that in a second. I am joined tonight by my co-host. You know them well. First, his name is Mino Spellgood. Mino, how are you, and how was your holiday?
Hey, Mark, I had a really low-key Christmas, I guess. I went to three different celebrations over 2 days, and each one was smaller head count, maybe 10 to 15 people. So my holidays are pretty quiet, a lot of family traveling, a lot of people sick. So,
That's
so
an issue.
very, very understated compared to my Thanksgiving, but that's okay too.
And I'm also joined by Kreese. We also call him Zerink. Kreese, how was your holiday?
My holiday was nice, peaceful, no disasters, and I will be happy with that. I'm glad the holidays are over.
Very good. Well, my wife and I got to go on a date out in the town in Chicago, and we saw Hamilton on Friday. Then we were with her family on Saturday, and then church on Sunday, and working on Monday and Tuesday, Christmas Eve festivities, and uh, Christmas Day, just kind of relaxed at home. But I was able to, the Monday before Christmas, take my sons out to see the Rise of Skywalker. So it's been a good week of Broadway and Hollywood theater, and of course, lots of church services and celebrations with family and friends. So we do wish you all the best of luck, and just hope you all had a great time this holiday, and you're going to have a good time and responsible time this New Year's Eve coming up. So let's talk about what's happened in the life of Defoe since last we met. And thank you, Macnol, for the resub for 4 months. You can sub to us. That does help. If you are on Twitch, you can go to twitch.tv/the Crystal Chronicles, all spelled out. And you can sub to us. If you are an Amazon Prime user, you get a free Twitch sub if you link your accounts. So use that on us, and we appreciate that. And we appreciate all of you cheers and bits and all that kind of stuff. That does help offset the costs of our show, and maybe even allows us to buy some extra things to give to you. And yes, we didn't take this week off. Why would we take this week off? It's just Christmas. And happy Christmas tide to all of you. And Hanukkah, too. It's still Hanukkah, isn't it? Correct? So, and everything else. There's lots of different holidays at this time of year. We don't want to discriminate. But in the holiday season, there have been some things released in Defoe, including there are currently 3 costumes, 2 old and 1 new. Y'shtola has her very, very cool costume. That is back, and you can buy that. Vaan has his costume. It's not too bad. It's a Sky Pirate costume. And Locke has a new costume, his classic look. So if you like that, it is actually a pretty nice costume for Locke. All of those are available to you. We also had a couple of updates or bug fixes. I'm going to go with the second one first, guys, looking in the notes. We got a 10-ticket reward added for completing Act 2, Chapter 2. There was some miscommunication in what the rewards were, so they did go back and give us that 10 extra tickets. If you already completed it, you just got it. If you haven't yet, there will be 10 more tickets waiting for you on the completion of Act 2, Chapter 6.
So to
Then,
explain what happened,
yeah,
they accidentally gave us a 1,000 gem reward as a reward for
yes,
completing Act 2, Chapter 6,
yep,
when they started and they implemented a new thing for this story chapter where you just have to clear a specific stage to get that normal
yep.
1,000 gem reward. So theoretically, if you complete the whole story chapter, you get 2,000 gems on top of everything else for clearing all the stages. Normally, it would be 10 tickets. They made that mistake. They're leaving the 1,000 gems in for completing the chapter and giving you the 10 tickets on top of it.
Happy holidays, everyone. Now, there was another thing that was fixed, and it was something I found out like right before they fixed it. And that was there was a bug in Dimensions End, which I certainly didn't know about until we just right before they patched it. And the bug was this: if you were doing entropy or any of the Dimensions End, and you went back and unlocked or unperfected a team and then beat it again, you would still get, even if you didn't have the number of turns or scores, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, you would still be considered perfect moving on and be able to unlock your good characters. So there are a few folks, and if you were able to do this, God bless you, who were able to go use their very good team to get all the score requirements, the turn requirements, the HP requirements, and perfect each of the tiers, and then go back with kind of subpar teams and maybe take a extra turn count or just get the clear with gem revives, but still considered perfect so that they could get their silver or gold plate. That was fixed, so you're no longer able to do that. I think still, I haven't looked today, but I know right after the patch, I did look, and I think right before, like the day we found out was the day that they patched this, whenever that was. That day I looked, and I think we were at 9 or 10% of the people who had started entropy had cleared tier 5, and that wasn't perfected, that's just cleared. And after we found out about this and after they patched it, it was up to 13%. So I think word probably did get out a little bit. I didn't see a lot of it on social media. We certainly didn't share it except in some of our private channels. So, you probably didn't get a chance to take advantage of this. If you did, whatever, no harm, no foul. But there are certainly some people whose gold plates got a little easier than others. So, guys, you want to say anything else about this? Just one of those things that
I'm going
happens.
to point out that this was actually in the game when Pathos and Order dropped.
Oh,
A
wow.
couple people on our Discord had mentioned that they ran into it by mistake,
Hmm.
and we noticed the bug, but it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't really circulated that much. With Entropy and all the stages being Chaos stages, it started getting out a little bit more because these fights tend to be harder than overall than the Pathos fights were.
Right. Exactly. Mino, you have anything to...
I don't remember. I did not use this bug, as you can tell, because I still have a bronze plate in game. And I think I ran into it by mistake when I was re-clearing a couple of Pathos stages. I didn't think anything of it, and I thought maybe I'd misread that I did not get the perfect when it marked me off, so I don't know what happened.
I want to thank... See, I miss everybody. If I do miss you, I apologize. I had a bunch of subs. JSB011, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. Cedra Games, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. And Talute, thank you for gifting 5 Tier 1 subs. So all of you who are gifted a sub, you are now part of our community. Excuse me. And Talute, thank you for... your support of us, and of course Tolute's a big part of the fabled Tonberry troop, who we are not at war with. We are not at war with the Tonberry troop, regardless of what Mino says. So thank you all for your support, and do check out the Tonberry troop and all of their, and they're all on social media too, so check out all of their social media links so you can keep up to date with their infographics and all that good stuff. Well, that brings us to the Winter Festival Part 2, a gigantic winter. Now, that's been an ongoing event. You got to beat this big cactar with the Santa hat a couple times a day. You don't have to host. I think it said at one point you do have to host to get some of the rewards. You can guest and get the rewards. So you have to at least do 2 co-ops a day to get those rewards. It is a pretty decent in terms of reward-wise co-op, and it's pretty easy to beat. And the Cactar doesn't do anything. He wishes you a Merry Christmas and anything. So, I mean, it's nice. It's a fun thing. But you get a limited number of tickets or tokens from that quest, from the daily quest, and we got 10 extra. So the question is, you don't have enough tokens, or we're not going to get enough tokens to get all of the rewards. So the question is, what is the priority? And I actually had some good conversation about this week on our Discord. What's worth more, a ticket, a weapon token, or a power stone? Now, some of the arguments that I heard were tickets are the most important or the most valuable item because a ticket can equal a weapon token, or a ticket can equal 4 power stones or more. So, very, very interesting conversation. What do you guys want to prioritize, and what do you think of that? So, Mino, what do you think about all that?
Oh man, don't even get me started. I'm the one arguing on
Yeah.
our Discord servers here, but power pieces are more important to me because tickets are potential power pieces, but I'd rather bet on the sure thing. I don't want 20 bronzes. That's a completely realistic possibility. Like, come on, guys. I mean, people are like, oh, well, you might get an EX, but you can't count on it. I'd rather pull for things that I can count on for sure. I've never put a lot of stock in tickets, anyways. I always empty them as I get them.
I'm kind of leaning in the same direction as Mino. So far, I have spent my holiday tokens on armor tokens, power stones, and my investment after I finish collecting all of the power tokens will be to go towards the high crystals next for the crystal colors I'm lacking in supply for, especially yellow crystals. I've noticed recently I'm very low on. Mostly because I'm looking at what supplies are limited, what supplies am I actually in need of right now. And that's what I've been going with. The tickets are low priority. I'm not going to get them until I've gotten everything else I need first.
All right. Well, I think the best advice is just kind of map out. Don't spend them all at once. Kind of see how many you have and pick up the things that are most valuable to you and your game and however you play. So that does bring us to the story chapter that we introduced and talked about last week, Act 2, Chapter 6, Second Partner. It had just released, and so we did not want to give any spoilers. So at this time, this is the spoiler warning. We are going to talk briefly about the story. If you want to avoid spoilers, just stop, play through the chapter, come back, or just pause, skip ahead 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long Mino takes about this, and we'll come back to it. Not that he has any opinions, I'm just saying. Guys, do you want to kind of talk about, and then we're going to talk about some of the fights in this chapter as well, but what did you think about the story? I think last week I gave some initial reaction to it. There was a lot of cutscenes, and I didn't feel like a lot of content within those cutscenes. I've played through, I'm all caught up in everything in the game, thankfully, except some treasure board farming for new characters. But besides that, I've been able to complete everything. And I did find the chapter, my initial impressions kind of carried through. Now, I didn't play Final Fantasy XIV. I do know kind of some of the story beats, so it wasn't a shock to me. But if I didn't know the story beats, and I know both you, Kreese, and Mino have played Final Fantasy XIV, I wouldn't have known anything that was going on. Like, none of the conversations would have made any sense to me whatsoever if I didn't know about what had happened. And Mino just said it. The fact that Papalymo dies.
Spoilers.
Well, we just said spoilers. I had a whole thing about it being spoilers. I stopped and I said, spoiler alert. Papa's dead. Spoilers. That's why you have a spoiler alert. Come on. So what did you guys think about the chapter? I don't care about that kind of stuff.
I don't have any opinions. Creasy can take it away.
You don't have any.
I'm going to be brief. The general gist is I thought the story was the worst so far for the Act 2 stories. It was all fluff and very little substance because it's like the story itself didn't want to spoil what happened, which considering the Ida is Lee's thing is kind of a silly aspect to go with. So the Final Fantasy 14 side of the story just came off as nothing really. It just came off as dead material because they were like, oh, we all know what's going on, but we're not going to talk about it.
Right.
Nope, never will. The Final Fantasy 11 side of the story sounded actually okay, but I don't remember Final Fantasy 11 story for the life of me because I haven't played it in 20 years, I guess now. I don't know.
So here's
it's been
the
a long
thing,
time.
spoiler wise. So we're joking around too, but you can't even play Final Fantasy 11, right? I mean, that's not even like a thing.
Oh no, it's still up.
Oh yeah,
you can.
It's still available. Okay, so help me understand, because I'm not an MMO player or anything else. It's never been my thing. If I wanted to start playing Final Fantasy 14, would I just start at the newest story, or
nope,
would I be able to go back?
Beginning.
Okay, so
you could start at the newest one. You pay extra. You
Okay.
pay for a boost to the newest story. Like they are like, oh, if you pay extra money, you can skip to the newest segment of the story. Hell, you can choose where in the story you skip to. So it is technically possible.
So I would actually play through, if I wanted to play Final Fantasy 14, I would actually play through all of the different expansions up until now.
Right, but that would take you forever. I would not do that as a sane person.
That would be terrible, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's more cutscenes in this game. I don't know why you would sign up for that willingly.
Yeah. So
Final Fantasy 14 has some good story beats, but a lot of the rebuilt, A Realm Reborn, the original or the re-release of Final Fantasy 14 is a lot of story building and not so much interesting story. It's a lot of world building, which means that
skip that, no problem.
You can skip it, but skipping it will leave you confused later on when you wonder, why does this matter?
Nah, just watch a YouTube summary. Skip that first part. It is terrible. It is 40 plus hours of fetch quests and meaningless garbage. It really is. I don't think Kreese can fight me on that.
There is a lot of meaningless garbage and a lot of meaningless fetch quests in there.
Thank you.
And there was meaninless fetch quests. There was meaningless fetch quests in this chapter as well, wasn't there? Then you have to kill so many killer bees.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was.
You got to give DFF. You got to give DFFO credit. Like, it's true to the source materials. We got a ton of cutscenes that said nothing, and a ton of wandering around doing nothing, just like the MMO games. No, but I'll let Kreese finish. Kreese, finish your thoughts on this chapter. Oh, by the way, I want to say, it is funny. Mark pointed this out, that when you load into the chapter, it gives you Lisa's summary.
Spoilers.
And it tells you the exact spoilers that they quote unquote avoid in the story. It seems like in chat, a lot of people who haven't played FF14 have no fucking idea what was happening at all. They're like, can you please tell us what it all meant? Because it was a lot of fucking nothing. Like, they didn't talk about anything. So, I mean, what a waste of a chapter. But Kreese,
I'm not gonna, unless people really want me to go into what happened in this story chapter. The point is, nothing happened. Lise remembered who she is. She revealed that she isn't actually Ida. She's actually Ys. She's been Lise all along, and that's about it.
So did she know that she was Lise, or had she forgotten?
Yes, she did.
Okay, she knew, right?
Lise
no, in this
has
one,
been
really
masquerading as Ida for a long time. In Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, up through the beginning of Stormblood, Lise is Ida. Ida dies before any of these events happen. And the reason she's able to maintain that illusion is because of Papalymo. Papalymo helps her. He knows who she is, really, but has agreed to help her with it.
Apparently everybody else knows, too, because they're like, oh, yeah, we all knew.
Yes, it's revealed after Lise makes this big reveal to the Signs of the Seventh Dawn that she was, in fact, Lise all along. They were like, oh, yeah, we knew that. We could tell right away. And
seriously.
then it's just like, okay, so this big reveal was only a big reveal for the player character.
Right. Oh, that's funny. Well, looking at the actual fights, I thought there were a couple interesting fights before we got to the chaos. Unfortunately, they were, if you are able to beat chaos things, they weren't very hard. If they were chaos difficulty, they would have been fairly difficult and challenging. The first one for me was that the first level has only one boss fight, and that's Cam, and maybe one of the snake things. But then you get into the second one, there's a whole bunch of boss nodes. The one that I thought was interesting was 622 Corpse Flower. And that has the weird looking flower thing.
It's the Rafflesia, right?
Yeah, the Rafflesia.
Yeah, it is.
This is only a level 90, but it gives you, there's tons of status debuffs. It resists a whole bunch of different elements. It absorbs earth. And if it had been a more difficult event, I think it would have been an interesting fight, but it was only level 90, so it died pretty quick, so I don't even think it got any buffs off. A whole bunch of different things. So if you are lower level, that one might be particularly challenging. We also had 2 red nodes, and I think both the red nodes were difficulty 120, which are not really even chaos. Our Cosmos is 150, chaos is 180, so these are somewhere between EX and Cosmos. The first one was Ashen Byway Part 2, and here you fought the Rampage machines that we fought before in the Sid event, heavily resistant to melee and magic this time, weak to ranged, they have frame buffs, you have to remove those, deal with those. It made you bring a range team, which is interesting because we don't have a lot of Cosmos viable range characters. Now we got Ferris has some stuff going on. Fang, right, is
Cloud
ranged.
has some range.
Cloud has some range. Cloud's actually really
Fang
good
is all
option.
melee.
Noctis is she doesn't have range with her Dragoon stuff. Noctis is still very usable at this difficulty level. So, but it did make you think about, okay, who do I either need to ignore the fact that it's resistant to these things, like just by battering, or who does have that range stuff. So again, if it would have been chaos, it would have been a little bit more challenging because that would have really limited your options. The second red node was Small Hill Part 2, Weapon Keepers, heavily resistant to range and magic. They were immune to debuffs, and they offer a lot of debuffs. Again, we fought these creatures before. Would have been difficult if it was a little higher difficulty, only level 120. You just have to make sure you bring your best physical characters, melee characters, and don't bring any debuffers. So that does bring us to the chaos fights. We had the first one, 642, which was the 2 brothers. They are brothers, correct?
That was Cosmos difficulty.
They're brothers.
And yeah, they are brothers.
Oh, that's only Cosmos difficulty? Oh, okay. That's okay. I thought that was chaos. 642. All right. So that
the
was
one with Kamlanut and Eldnarsh is Cosmos difficulty.
All right.
Yeah. The one with just Eldnarsh is chaos.
So in the Cosmos fight, you fight both of them together. Of course, they can shield, they can remove debuffs. They have lots of AoE HP attacks and single target HP attacks. It's not their beefed up versions, and it was only Cosmos, so bring your Chaos team and you're going to beat through it real quick. And that does bring us to Fiendish Fantasy, where you have eye patchless Aldenarche, or however the hell you say that guy's name.
Eldonarsh.
Is there actually voice in Final Fantasy 11?
No, but it is Eldnarsh in Japanese. Just 2 syllables.
Eldnarsh. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, eye patch guy. Yeah. So this is only a 1-wave chaos fight. There's Eldnarsh and 2 mannequins. He can respawn those mannequins. He is resistant to ranged attacks. He is immune to paralysis, and he has a very powerful ability called Vortex, which is an AoE HP attack that becomes more powerful when he is below his initial Brave, if I read that correctly. So when he's broken or below his int Brave, the actually attack becomes more powerful, and he does that attack almost nonstop when his health is low. So be careful with that. So what do you guys think of those fights? Were there anything particularly challenging, or were you able to get through it without much of an issue?
The fact that you could bring a co-op team to help you out with it definitely makes them a lot more manageable. One thing to keep in mind is that the co-op teams are only available for the first 2 weeks of this story chapter. After that, they go to solo only. So if you want help clearing these out, look for it sooner rather than later. Um, the Cosmos I did solo. I think I screwed up my planning for how to deal with the last wave, and I took a couple too many HP hits all at once and wiped. And then the second time I went back, I just changed my strategy a little bit, and it was fine. Chaos fight, I got help from the Discord to get through it, and we got it on our second try because we took a little bit more of a Mimi team the first time.
I soloed it, but that is a great reminder that if you are struggling with this, because if you do beat this, there's gems and tickets and good stuff. So do come on Discord. You can join our Discord. Go to tccpodcast.com. We have co-op rooms, and you can just find some people to co-op with. If any of us are around, we normally happy to do that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit easier with friends. What's an ideal situation? Hey, Masalento Games is on Discord. How you doing? Check out Masalento Games. He's a streamer and a Defo streamer. Who did you find ideal to bring in that besides Yishtola? And what's her name? Lise. Anybody?
Oh, sorry, to clear it up in chat. It's important to know all the story chapters will have a chaos co-op for the final fight. There's no extra bonuses. It's just for newer players to get help if they can't do it, which is a nice feature. But yeah, there aren't any special
That
tokens.
drove me up a wall because it meant that the highest difficulty co-op was level 70, which does not award a lot of tokens, which made grinding out this co-op shop a slog. It took me almost a whole week.
Yeah, the co-op, I'm not even sure that I have. I think I just collected everything from the main, the story chapter co-op, because it is has a lot of stuff in it. That's for sure.
It's an easy co-op. It's just a slog. You have to do it so many times to get all the rewards. That's the only annoyance I have. They should have increased the tokens a little bit more.
Anything else on story chapter Arc 2, Act 2, Chapter 6? All right, well, let's move to Locke LC, Treasure Hunting. This brings back Locke, his full LC. If you never got him before, you can pick him up, get a weapon and a couple armors. We also have Locke's and Celes's EX weapons on a banner with Setzer's 35 and 15 as well. And Locke and Celes get EX Realizations. So Kreese pulled on this banner. He loves these two characters and is a big Final Fantasy VI fan. So he is going to bring you through Locke and Celes.
So Celes did get a rework on this banner along with her EX Realization. Locke, however, had gotten his rework in 70 back on Act 2, Chapter 5 release and Awakening Wave 3, I think it was. So he didn't get any changes there. The only thing that happened is he got his EX Realization. So let me go through that first. If you just realize his weapon, so 0 limit breaks, his EX ability gets a faster recharge rate, a little bit more overflow, and he gets a special buff called Master's Scroll when he uses his EX ability. Master's Scroll is kind of similar to Miracle Shoes. It gives him some passive bonuses, basically increases his overflow on all skills by 20%, and it gives him access to a unique HP plus Master's Scroll, which is a pretty strong one. It's a 2 Brave plus HP repeated twice with overflow available. Deals weakness damage if the enemy's not targeting, but like Miracle Shoes, it's also dispels Master Scroll once it's done, or once it's used up. 1 limit break has Locke begin with his Treasure Hunter and Master Scroll buffs, the buffs from his EX ability. At 2 limit breaks, he gets a massive attack boost and a moderate max Brave boost. And at 3 limit breaks, Mirage Dive becomes a 2 Brave plus HP attack executed twice, and also gets splash HP damage. So overall, pretty big bonus to how he functions. His EX charges faster, he gets a new buff, he gets a huge attack boost, which he really needed. All the sort of niceties. His EX becomes a much better button to push. If you do get his EX weapon fully realized, he gets a bonus sphere that is an A sphere if attacking an enemy that's not targeting the owner of the sphere, they get a small attack bonus for a few turns. Overall, Locke makes out pretty well with this. He maintains his niche from before. This doesn't really change anything. It makes him much more reliable as a damage dealer, and that's about it. Mino, do you have any thoughts on Locke overall?
I mean, nothing we haven't already said. Really strong physical, single target damage. Skill 2 is great utility, battery and heal and AoE, and his kit has a good amount of RNG in it, but nothing new. Like you said, it's just adding on to more of what already existed, right?
Yeah, his kit doesn't change. It just makes him better at what he does already. And he's a little bit of a jack of all trades. He's not quite the pure offensive powerhouse of the other thieves in the game. He has some more utility in his kit with a max brave and speed aura and the ability to heal and battery the party a bit, but he is not amazing at anything he does, but he is very strong now.
All right, well, let's move on to character number 2, and that is Celes, who did get a rework and an EX realization.
Yeah, this rework was much needed for Celes. Her kit was really outdated at this point. Big changes. Her first ability, Shine Edge, is now a 5 Brave plus HP attack with 150% overflow, and also she gets a brave. Oh, one thing to mention: she gets brave refunds on almost everything she does now. So Shine Edge gives her a brave refund based on HP damage dealt. Runic is now a party battery plus a brave plus HP attack plus inflicts lock to all targets plus has a longer duration on brave magic absorb than it did before, 6 turns up from 4. Plus can overflow, plus gives her brave refund based on HP damage dealt. So Runic is a much better button to push now than it used to be, which is a huge bonus. Her HP plus was also improved. It's now a 2 brave plus HP attack with some overflow, and she also has a brave refund based on HP damage dealt. Her additional ability inflicts lock to all targets for a few turns. And I'm sorry, I said Runic was an AoE lock. It is not. It's only a single target still. If you want Celes to be able to AoE inflict lock or provoke to all targets, you're going to have to use her additional ability, which when bloomed gives her 2 uses, extends the duration of the provoke to 4 turns, and if you get the extension equipped, she gets a small max brave boost to the party for 5 turns after use. Spinning Edge, it's a crappy button on its own, but if you realize it, recharge rate goes up. It gets a little bit of overflow just from booking it. At 1 limit break, she gets a passive attack and max brave boost, about a moderate boost. Her frame buff from her EX ability, Rune Knight, now has a party max brave aura attached to it. And she starts with Rune Knight and an attack up buff on her when the battle begins. At 2 limit breaks, she gets a brave refund after dealing damage with Spinning Edge, so that makes it so all of her abilities now have brave refunds attached to them. And at 3 limit breaks, fully realized, Spinning Edge becomes much stronger. It gets more overflow, and it has 2 HP components. So it does a 2 brave plus HP followed by a 5 brave plus HP attack, which makes it a very strong button to push. And with the increased recast rate, it's about every other button activation if she's using abilities pretty regularly. And she also gives a B sphere if you fully realize her weapon, which gives her after using any skill or ability, the character gains brave based on their initial brave. So she is strong. She's a lot stronger. She still fills that niche where she is a tank that shuts down magic attackers very hard. She brings some damage to support that role a little bit better. So now she can actually do something other than just basically ignore a magic attacker's attacks for a few turns. But she does suffer from having that very tight niche. She's not as effective if you're not dealing with enemies that deal magic attacks. She still has her brave refunds on all of her abilities, but she takes damage, so she's not going to be able to function as appropriately. But she is strong at her niche, and I think that's the plus for her. I fully realized her because I love Celeste's kit the first time around, I wanted to use it again, and I've been using it for fights here and there since she was released. I'm sure Mino has some thoughts on her too, so I'll let Mino talk.
Oh, I think she's great, as in, well, so she's very specialized. She can exist outside of her specialization because, but I'll get into that. But she's extremely specialized, but also for the entire course of the DFFOO game so far, even up to JP 8 months ahead, she has no rival in what she does, which is negate magic damage, specifically single target magic damage. So any fight, I think, with a majority single target magic damage, just like the Phoenix in this one, she will trivialize completely, and she's a great pick for that. Otherwise, even for attacks that are, even for bosses that are more magic oriented, she has a way to reduce magic damage taken by the entire team.
Oh,
And
I forgot to mention that. Thanks for
yeah,
reminding me, Mino. I'm going to cut you off quickly.
yeah.
Her Brave damage reduction buff now does apply an effect to her party members where they take reduced magic damage as well. I'm sorry for not mentioning that.
Right. So she even has that utility if she can't shield them. And her her damage is just pretty damn respectable. And it's elemental. So that makes her even more of a specialist because as I want to talk about once we get into Vaan, the whole point of single element characters are that they're not the best when it comes to general use, but when you need them, they are amazing. And she
I'm going to
doubles.
mention that
Oh, go
the
ahead.
only thing Celeste does that is tied to an element is her Brave attack. Everything else is non-elemental.
Oh, I thought Shine Edge was. Am I wrong? Was that not
Shine
changed?
Edge is non-elemental.
Okay, but she has the option of an element. I guess that's something. And I
Her
wouldn't be
Brave
surprised.
attack's garbage.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they change it in the future as well, because Celes has always been tied to an ice elemental in all the other games as well. But basically, she is the go-to magic tank, bar none. At least 8 months into the future. Like she's just great at it. And while I won't say she's a must have, she is an amazing luxury that if you do happen to pull her without investing too many resources, there are a good handful of fights in the future that she will just completely knock out for you. Couple of entropy fights too as well. Um, she does have a couple of downsides though, which is in a non-magic environment, she's obviously a subpar tank because, clearly she's not going to take physical damage as well as any other tank. Any other tank, basically. I mean, she can do it, sort of. She has last stand, she has self heals, she has high defense, she can do certain things, but she has no advantage towards it. Even other tanks like Bosch, who don't specialize in that, at least take reduced brave damage across the board, which we'll talk about. The other thing is, um, she's mostly a single target tank as well. Her AA does have an AoE taunt, but it's limited. Mostly she's going to have single target taunts, and if they do if they do AoE brave plus HP, there's her other teammates are still going to take a hit, and without a healer, it's kind of tough, which sucks because all the other tanks we're seeing now kind of nullify the need for a healer. Like Warrior of Light
That
has.
is definitely a big weakness. You have to
Yes.
really pick and choose what fight she goes to. For example, Dimensions End Entropy 2, she is great for because there are no AoE HP attacks there. She can take all the HP attacks and be fine because she has her Last Stand passive. You
Right.
try to take her to Pathos 3, number one, they don't use as many magic attacks, and they do a lot of AoE HP attacks, which is another problem.
Yeah, and so like her two uh competitors right now are Warrior of Light, who has minimal healing, but enough to get the job done. That he has been used as a primary healer in some fights, and Bosch, who can make sure nobody else gets hurt and heal himself, negating the need for a healer. So, I mean, at the end of the day, all I have to say is Celes is an amazing specialist, amazing at what she does, but she is such a specialist that she is not a great general character. On my list, I'd put nice to have. Like, I wish I had her. I think she's a great character, but not a priority pull for newer accounts or people who want the most bang for their buck. Still an amazing character, though. Like I said, though, just really hard to gauge how good she is because she only excels in certain fields and situations. Mark,
Yeah,
do you have anything to add to that? Oh, or Kreese, did you want to finish a thought?
she is definitely a character that when she is in her niche or when you find a fight where she works great, she shuts it down so hard. But if you are not in that fight, then she's usually a lower tier pick. You're not going for her first.
Yeah. hmm Do you have any thoughts, Mark?
Yeah, well, I like both these kits quite a bit. I threw 200 tickets, I think, or 100 tickets at this banner, 1 or 200 tickets, and did not walk away with either EX. But I did want to go to the podcast polls. We do, thank you, Quetz, for that. Puts up polls for each banner and each realization. So jump on the Discord and under podcast polls, do answer the best of your ability. Gives us a sense. So going into this banner, which would be Celes, Locke, and Setzer, 5 people were willing to pity. Now, we don't know which one they were aiming at, but pity and EX. 2 using gems, 16 tickets, and 27 skipping of those who answered. Of those who were going to have Locke EX, 6 were going to keep it at just EX. 9 were going to realize it. 1 person was going to just do 1 or 2 limit break. So no one was going to invest just 1 ingot. 1 person was going to invest 2 ingots, and 17 were going to invest, 17 were going to invest all 3 and fully realize. And I think that was the recommendation, that he is fully realized, and most of them at this point are fully realizations. For Celes, only 4 were going to keep it at EX. 5 were going to realize it. 1 person was going to just invest 1 ingot, and 21 were going to fully realize her. So that's what you all shared. I didn't get it. Mino doesn't have it. Kreese said what he did. So
I fully realized less. I kind of regret fully realizing least last week because I think Locke would have been a better investment at this time.
I agree. Poorly.
Well, 1 week regret. That's a quick turnaround.
Poor
I'm gonna try to make Lise work because I invested in her, but yeah,
you can make her work.
Kind of wish I had not as impulse invested in her as.
All right, that does bring us to the Chaos fight, and you can check out Macnol's Call to Arms, Macnol, Macnol's C2A, on Reddit, and that has all the video submissions who have already been out there, and he does that for all of the events, and he is working on one for. He has one out for Order and Pathos and is working on one for Entropy right now as well. So be checking out that on Reddit, or you can find that link on our Discord as well. But this fight was a 5-wave chaos fight. Wave 3 was 2 Skull Wizards, which is a boss we've seen many, many times. They have very powerful buffs. They have powerful AoE HP attacks, powerful HP attacks in general. You have to be very careful with how you approach them. Make sure that you can either debuff them or remove their buffs, or take their attacks as needed, or heal up from it. The boss of this chaos fight was the Necro Raven, which has 2 different stances. First, it has high altitude, where it recovers brave, and at low altitude it is a melee vulnerable and has more powerful attacks. After you defeat its HP bar, or reduce its HP bar to 0, it fully recovers its HP. It clears itself of all debuffs, increases its staff, and becomes more powerful, and just in general becomes more powerful. Generally speaking, I did it a few times. The first health bar is fairly straightforward. You can kind of manage its attacks. If you do have some melee characters, they can do that extra damage when it is in low altitude before it does its big magma wave attack. The second time around becomes a little bit more difficult. It does cause several debuffs with various different attacks. So different attacks cause different debuffs, some of them fairly significant. And it has this very powerful magma wave attack, which does a lot of damage. Unless you're able to debuff it, then it becomes a little bit more manageable. Now, I think the problem people came into with this fight was you needed a fairly low turn count, or you needed some way to increase your score via launch or everything else. Generally speaking, the best way to do this was to bring characters who had free turns, like Locke, of course, has that free turn mechanic. Celes was able to kind of just negate the damage that this was doing, so the two of them definitely had some synergy bias. For myself, the first attempt I went in with Ultimecia, Agrias, and Lilizette, and did not get the store. I also then brought in Y'shtola for Agrias and wasn't able to get the score. So I ended up bringing Charlotta because, again, Charlotta is a free turn character. So I had three free turn characters to able to just blow the score out of the water and beat it fairly easily. So what did you guys find in that, or were you able to take on that chaos fight?
I found this fight pretty easy, but I also had a 3/3 Celeste to just
Yeah.
trivialize it.
Yeah.
I think I went in with Celeste, Y'shtola, and Ultimecia, and that was more than enough to get through, though I did get very close to not meeting the turn count.
I don't know. You just do a lot of damage in this fight. I just hit hard.
All right.
This boss wasn't very remarkable the first time it came around. It was the boss that ended the Hell Month, and they made sure you knew that because they gave it so many weaknesses. It was a joke. It was a punching bag for you to punch until loot fell out of. It's more threatening here, but it's not so threatening that you can't just think it through and work a way around it.
All right. Well, if you are having trouble, again, check out Macnol's Call to Arms. If you have some fun videos that you've done, make sure you submit them so other people can share them and learn from them and everything else. So that brings us to our new event, the Bosch event, Captain's Loyalty. And that brings us a new character, Bosch. But before that, we do get a rework and an EX realization for the main character of that game, Vaan, who is also on this banner. The banner is Vaan, Bosch, and Sarah for some reason. So those are your three characters. Bosch and Vaan have their EX. I'm going to cover Vaan's rework and his EX realization. I unfortunately do not have it. I have pulled on every banner with Vaan's EX, trying to chase Vaan's EX. I've never gotten it. Spent 200 tickets on this one, got Bosch's full kit, no Vaan EX. Got about 1,000 of Vaan's 15 CP weapons. So now my Power Stone problem is not really a problem anymore, which is good, going into a month with a lot of EXs that I'm chasing. So Vaan's rework. Red Spiral, his first ability, skill 1, gets 2 more uses. It does more damage. It gets overflow, increases his buff duration to 8 turns, gives him Brave Recovery. Now, both of the abilities now will give Brave Recovery, which is a really big deal. He becomes much more useful with that extra boost. Now, this is before his EX realization. If you just have his 15 and 35 CP or his non-realized EX, the final use of both Red Spiral and White Whirl become a plus variant, which the plus variant's more powerful, but at the end of using it, so after you've used the plus version, so you have no more skills left, he gets a 16-turn frame buff, Flight to Freedom, which gives an attack buff to himself and also a Brave Regain to himself as well. So very good frame debuff, or frame buff, but you're out of abilities. His Crystal Strength 58 has been reworked to give him more max Brave up, and then White Whirl, his skill 2, again, 2 more uses, more damage, overflow, increased buff duration, and the same thing, the final use is a plus version that's much more powerful and gives him this 16-turn framed buff. His buffs with his rework, grant a Brave Plus, which is a 2-hit melee attack, and Flight to Freedom, his frame buff, grants Brave Plus Plus, which is a 3-hit magic Brave attack. So he does get those with his just rework. His AA.
The HP plus and HP plus plus requires EX
Yes,
realization,
and
Mark.
and
Just FYI.
because I did not mention those for that specific reason. Yes, he gets the Brave Plus and the Brave Plus Plus with his rework and his frame buff, but he does not get the special HP attacks unless you use his EX, which we'll get to here in a second. His additional ability is Brave Up, Attack Up. Has 3 uses, basically gives him some Brave and Attack Up for 2 turns. Not great, but it is what it is. Now his EX Realization. If you just realize it, Pyroclasm overflows more, and he gets an HP plus. His HP plus is just a Brave plus HP attack with overflow. Now, if you invest 1 ingot, he gets an attack and max Brave up. If you invest 2 ingots, and this is the important one, although the third one's pretty important too, you get Flight to Freedom when the quest starts for 8 turns, not the 16 turns. And then additionally, every time you use his EX, he gets that Flight to Freedom frame buff. So that's very important. If you fully realize him, Pyroclasm becomes super powerful. And this is why you really, really need to use all 3 ingots if you want to use Vaan. He gets a plus version of Pyroclasm, which makes Pyroclasm even more powerful, and he gets a HP plus attack when he has used his frame buff or has his frame buff. His HP plus is a 2-hit Brave plus HP attack, which is significantly powerful compared to some other things. His sphere is an attack sphere, which gives him attack up when his HP is max, which is a nice attack buff. His recommended arts are the same, attack 108, max Brave 330. Vaan benefits because he is a selfish DPS, pure selfish DPS. He benefits from auras, frame buffs, some ununique buffs, batteries for his HP plus, which is a great attack. His EX is fairly quick charging, but he does have limited, only 6 uses of each skill 1 and skill 2. So I imagine he might struggle in some longer chaos fights without the right team. He is also, I think, just looking at all the different magic users we have right now, he's probably on the weaker end of the mages. Now we have Ultimecia, Ace, Kuja. We're about to get Emperor. Of those characters, his magic damage is really, really high, but he doesn't have any other gimmicks except for a couple random debuffs, which aren't, the blind can come in clinch. Yes, he does have the blind, and he also has a defense down. So those are not to be overlooked, but it's not the same kind of debuffing that Emperor is going to do. It's not the free turns that Ultimecia has. It's not the party auras that Kuja or Ace has, or the massive AoE damage that they do. His EX does do AoE, does splash damage, but none of his other abilities do that. He is just a powerful, mainly single target DPS mage, and he's really good at that. So, and he does get a burst. Mammoth is saying he does get a burst in Japan that's really, really good too. So you can wait for that when he gets his burst weapon. But I don't think you're gonna, I don't think you're gonna regret investing in Vaan. My recommendation would be, if you want to pad your magic bench, especially for entropy moving forward, he's a good addition. You can probably slot him in one of the earlier tiers to free up Ultimecia or Ace or some better character, and then wait till he gets a little bit better in the future and bring him back out. But he does do an incredible amount of damage. If you like him, I think you're going to invest in him. If you want to invest in him, you really, really need to use all 3 of the ingots, because you want that HP plus. Without that HP plus, his longevity is just not really good. So, all right. Well, any thoughts on Vaan, Kreese, or Mino?
Kreese, do you want to go first? Do you have anything?
My thoughts on Vaan are that he's kind of regained that stance for now of being the burst character. He does a lot of damage in very few turns. He's kind of the antithesis of Ultimecia. Her job is to do a lot of damage without spending a lot of turns by having a lot of free turns. Vaughn's job is just do a lot of damage and just do it fast. And in that purpose, he bursts hard. He always has, and he always will. just because of the way his kit's designed, but he burns out fast, like Mark said. And the other problem is he's tied to 4 different
Oh,
elements,
yes.
which means that he is incredibly prone to getting shut out of fights very easily. All it takes is for a high resistance or an absorb to 1 to 2 of those elements, and he is not going to be useful at all.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, he is tied to a whole bunch of elements. Mino,
I
any
hate it.
thoughts? You
I
hate it?
hate it, and I hate Vaan now. As I was ranting in our Discord today, um, he's the only character now that has a single ability that does multiple elements one at a time. Like everyone else, like twins or Knoll, who have like multiple, or seven who have multiple elements tied to one attack. That's so if one is resisted, or at least if one hits a weakness, the full thing will get through, and that's nice. Whereas Vaan is, say, wind then ice. If either wind or ice is resisted or absorbed, well, that move's just dead. Basically, it's terrible, and he has no subtlety to his kit. Like a very basic defense down and a blind, but otherwise it's just pure numbers. So basically, the consensus was, oh, he is an amazing single target nuke if
Yeah.
you bring him to a fight that does not require longevity. And if you bring him to a fight that does not absorb one of his 4 elements, which, let's face it, is getting rarer and rarer, it's I just think he's just I don't know. It's just hard to slot him in anywhere now. He does not fit into Chaos Era. Ink wanted us to bring up that his HP plus plus does give him some insane longevity now.
Yeah.
That he really can like go
You have to.
miles and miles.
You
Yeah.
cannot use him in chaos. I'm going to make an extreme statement. I do not believe you can use him in chaos effectively without his HP plus plus. It is
Right.
really, it
And,
is really good. Yeah.
right.
So
Everyone says HP plus plus is one of the best HP plus pluses in the game. But I just do not like his base kit of having these nukes be 1 element at a time, having 4 elements tied to him. He's the only character now. We're talking about how Celes is the only one in her niche for all of DFFOO history. Vaan is the only one in DFFOO history who has multiple elements one at a time and 4 elements in one kit. Like, I just do not like it. A lot of people were saying, "Oh well, Shantoto EX Plus in the future, etc." A lot of imperils. No, if you imperil and absorb, it's a 90% resist. If you imperil a 90% resist, it's a 50% resist. If you imperil a 50% resist, why not just bring another element at this point? Like, oh, and Chaos doesn't even have 50% resist. They either do 90% resist or absorbs, and they do like 4 or 5 elements at a time. I just think it's extremely hard to find a situation where you want to use Vaan instead of anybody else.
well,
As we, oh,
if
go
you
ahead.
don't have any other chaos viable magic users, and the boss is not weak to any of his elements or
Oh,
not resistant, then
Final
yeah,
character 7 reminds me that Alize has a ton of elements tied to her. Oh, you're right. You forget. You
yeah,
reminded me of my least favorite
she's
character in the game.
she's not
So
chaos
Vaughn's only my
viable
second least favorite,
either.
second least favorite character right now, and it's just I don't know what they're gonna do with him moving in the future because without spoiling too much, we don't want to talk about JP because it's 8 months away and this is GL. Vaughn's next rework isn't that impressive either. Immediately overshadowed and not a lot of hype concerning it because again, it's the same reason. His multi-element gimmick and one-dimensional play is just it's the easiest thing to power creep, right? Like if you have a gimmick, it's harder to replace you. But if your only gimmick is doing big damage, then it's easy. And then if you're a single element, you're better suited to a lot of fights. If you're a non-element, you work better with enchanters. With Vaan, cannot be enchanted, very set in his ways, hits one target really hard, and oh, Jake is saying so the element weakness rework will not help him, right? The element weakness rework just means that if you hit an elemental weakness, it bypasses physical or magic resist.
Right.
this doesn't do much for Vaan. Like, that's not going to help him, because if you're hitting wind and ice, it's like, sure, if the person resists, I mean, if they're weak to wind but resist magic, you'll hit for full damage. But that doesn't help him. It helps characters like Golbez, who it was made for. Golbez hits melee and magic in his attacks, but as
Right.
long as he hits the dark weakness, the whole thing hits for full damage. This does not help Vaan much, if at all. So
Arolai
I
is
wouldn't
saying you choose Vaan if you're her and you don't build villains and Ace hates you. So
Right.
yes,
So you have to have like a series of failures and unfortunate events to arrive down to Vaan.
or
And
well, yeah. Think of the mages we have, Ultimisha, Kuja, Emperor, Golbez. Coming up, Emperor and Golbez. Yeah, they're all villains. Huge DPS mages are all villains. So Slide says he's still a really good friend unit. I would suppose no. He starts with he does start with his frame buff if you're fully so if you have a fully realized EX. So he does have his EX, and remember you do have to use the first ability one of skill one or one of skill two to activate the more powerful version still. So you probably stick to skill two at that after the EX. So yeah, he still does tons of burst damage like he did before. Yeah.
right, I'll move on. But Final Character Seven's like, well, people like Shantoto EX Plus in the
Yep.
future can imperil all his elements.
Sure.
Right, but like we said, if even one of his elements is absorbed or resisted, it won't matter because it won't. Like I said, absorb lowers the 90% resist. 90% resist lowers the 50% resist. At what point are you really like forcing this square peg into a round hole? Right, like it's just too much effort at a certain point. But those are my thoughts on Vaan. He went from a character I really liked to now that Chaos is throwing absorbs and high resists at you, makes it really hard to use. And as people are saying too, a lot of future characters who specialize in elements come with their own imperils. Vaan doesn't even have that, so it's that much
Yeah,
harder to
it's
use it.
true. It's true.
Yeah.
So
Anything
moving.
else, Kreese? Oh,
Oh
sorry.
no, go
I think
ahead.
we've hit on everything. Vaan is a strong burst with a lot of drawbacks that can make him useless in fights.
Speaking of drawbacks, Mino, why don't you talk about Bosch?
Oh, I have a lot to talk about Bosch. I think it's a very so the consensus in our community seems to be this is a kit I really want to like, but I'm having trouble liking. Like the concept is very good, the execution is questionable. So let's jump into this. So Bosch is what I would call an off tank. And I know I've used this in my old evals a lot, and I got a lot of debates because MMO players like to be picky about their definitions where they're like off tank means a second tank that relieves the tank of some pressure. No, when I say off tank here, I just mean like a part-time tank or a character with some tanking ability not meant to be a full-time tank. Examples are, say, Prompto and Edge, right? Like they can nullify big attacks if they need to, but they cannot nullify it the entire fight. This is Bosch's gimmick. He has some short-term amazing damage reduction and taunts, but they're very short term. They last about, let's see here, 3 turns at a
Locke
time.
his 3 turns, and his tanking buffs are 4 turns.
Right. So roughly 3 to 4 turns, depending on how much you want to rely on the taunt. Um, so what that means is he's not going to be Warrior of Light or Zac or Celes, who can have 100% uptime when you're fighting bosses. You need to really time his stuff. I think so. So his main gimmick here is he absorbs AOE, all HP damage done to your party, onto himself at a reduced rate, and then he has self heals to back it up. So his whole thing is a different take on Porum is the only thing we've seen is HP damage reduction, and then he self heals, which can be very useful. We'll get to that. But the thing is, I think the developers overestimated how powerful this ability was. Because, I mean, it sounds amazing on paper, right? Taking AoE HP damage onto himself and then healing it back up. It completely destroys AoE HP attacks. It sounds amazing, so I think they made it very limited. and that they wanted you to think about it before you used it, like kind of predict the attack patterns or only use it for the big ones because it'd probably be broken as shit if he was allowed to have 100% uptime on it. So let's get to his kit. In general, you want to start with skill 2, Ruin Impendant, which is just a big single target physical hit. It heals him. Excess heals turn into a Brave Battery, which is nice. You know, like all tanks, he gets Brave Refund on all his skills. He gets self heals on all his skills, and then it grants him Knight's Aptitude, his unique framed buff that significantly boosts his attack in Max Brave and gives him access to his Brave Plus and HP Plus. Pretty standard stuff. Brave Plus is just a 2-hit attack. HP Plus is a Brave plus HP attack that heals him as well. So, you know, the theme here is self heals, tons of self heals. His skill 1, Fulminating Darkness, is the AoE Brave plus HP. It grants him the HP Kingdom Shield, which reduces all Brave damage and HP damage he takes by 60%, which is pretty significant for 4 turns, as well as an AoE lock for 3 turns. So this sounds like a lot, but the point is, if he's taking an AoE HP hit, he's taking 300% damage, and you're reducing that to 60. So he's still taking more than 100% HP hit, but he has a shit ton of HP to back it up, as people will see. And but if he's taking single target hits, he's still a great tank because he still reduces all Brave damage by 60%, HP damage by 60%. His EX is a big hit, double Brave plus HP attack, grants Dalmasca's Valiant, is another unique buff, which is an aura to the party. I think they have it wrong on the infographic here, but I believe it was plus 40% attack, plus 20% max Brave. Or is it 20% to both?
It's 20% to both.
20% to both. So it's a very modest aura. You know, not as good as the tanks we're used to, like Warrior of Light. I think comparable to Celes, and Zach's going to blow that out of the water later too. But like I said, I think they're overcompensating here. They think his gimmick is so strong. They really limited his the duration of it and his auras. So he's not like a tank you can slot anywhere, but for certain situations, he is a great tank. Currently usable in 3 of the 5 entropies, no problem. A lot of them have very predictable AoE HP attacks, as we've covered before. On tier 1, you have the King Behemoth that has very telegraphed AoE Brave plus HPs. Tier 3 has a lot of AoE Brave plus HPs. Tier 5 with the mannequins has a ton, and he can really shine there. He's a tank that can do AoE damage. He's not reliant on gimmicks for his damage as other tanks. Warrior of Light needs everyone to have shields up to do full damage. Zach needs people targeting him, etc. And he really can shine, but I want to say he's a little more difficult to play because you need to know the fight very well. You need to know when the Brave plus HP attacks are coming, as we'll talk about with Kreese when we cover this fight. So a lot of times you go into a fight blind. There's no way you're going to know when it's coming. And it's let me pass the mic for a second here in case you guys want to give some. Did I miss anything, Kreese, about Bosch's kit before we move on to his specific niches?
I don't know if you mentioned his additional ability. His additional ability is basically another way for him to heal himself if he gets low.
Right, yes.
It gives him an HP heal based on his max HP. If you extend it, it becomes a stronger heal. If you bloom it, he gets 2 additional uses of it. It also has an attack bonus, but that's less important for him.
So he has a ton of way to self-heal. Also, CSAM in chat is saying it's an 80% damage reduction, not 60%.
I think Porum's is 80.
Oh, okay.
Bosch is only 60.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. That makes more sense. Good. Have you had a chance to try him out, Mark? Do you have any additional thoughts?
I did pull his kit, and I pulled 4 copies of his 15 and 35, so their max limit broke. I have not fully limit broke his EX or realized it yet, so I did bring him into some challenging but not chaos fights just to get a sense of how he played. And I agree with you. I think they oversold his mechanic a little bit or they overestimated his mechanic, because he does reduce the damage, and he does kind of take it all on himself, which is really good, but he's still taking a whole bunch of damage. So,
Right, right,
I
right, right.
mean, so ideally, I mean, yes, he does heal himself, but ideally, you almost need to pair him with another healer or a HP regen support to give him even more. And so, I mean, you're creating kind of awkward teams. Um, but yeah, I mean, there are certain fights that, like this fight, where it's just a nonstop barrage of AoE HP attacks. But moving forward, the other issue is we just got Celes, who's kind of a niche tank. Now we got Bosch, who's a niche tank. We're about, over the next few months, we're gonna get some just game changing tanks, and that's the foresight that we have. If we didn't know who was coming in terms of the tank era, you know, Celes and Bosch would probably be really, really good picks that we'd feel really good about, because they are so unique, they are so interesting, and you wouldn't know what was coming, but we do know what's coming, and we also know who we're going to get to combat what's coming. So it makes the foresight a little harder on them. But I have him, so I'll probably throw him in there. Yes, Slide is reminding us that he does survive if his HP KO if his HP is over 50%, like Y'shtola. So that even though he's taking the damage, he can survive the hits. So that's part of his gimmick. So yep, he
Um,
gets the last stand ability.
so I mean, I mentioned the downsides. I want to mention the positives of Bosch. I don't think he's a total. I don't think he's a bad character. I think he's a good character, but he's how do I put this? I had another character in mind as an example, but I can't think of it. But he's a great budget character. Amazing budget character. He's not a top tier character that you're going to do progression with, but he's an amazing character if you want to do entropy. Like he's the perfect entropy character because you can slot him into weaker runs. As people are saying in chat, like the 60% damage reduction isn't a lot when he's taking 300%, basically, right? Like he's still taking 120% HP damage at the end of the day if you factor it all together, which is more than any tank should. It's still a shit ton. But so if you don't take him to the hardest content, you put him in slower content like the first 5 entropies with some good support, like he should be able to live through all of those AoE attacks no problem. And the thing is, he fills two roles. Right now, a lot of the early entropy stages, people want to bring a healer and maybe a tank. He can do both because as long as he's the only one taking HP damage and healing it back up, you're set. And then you can just pair him with two huge DPSs with some auras in there, and you probably have a great team. Like you can be a little more flexible with your team building because he's a 2-in-1. Like not a great 2-in-1, but above average in both areas. Like he heals a damn good amount, and he can still taunt people for a good amount of time. That it is worth bringing him, and I think that he will help a lot of people free up a lot of entropy fights. And that being said, as well, is that while I don't think HP damage reduction is ever a necessity, like there's no fight where you're gonna say I need HP damage reduction. It does help certain people with certain rosters for certain fights. Porum was not a necessity, but she made a lot of fights a lot easier for me because if I didn't have to worry about getting one-shotted by certain HP attacks, I could just bring two really strong characters with Porum and mow through it. So I do think he's a great character, just not a top-tier pick, but valuable if that's what you're going for, freeing up roster space and getting a lot of bang for your buck, I guess.
Yeah, looking
Do
at the Japan sheet for FEOD, a lot of folks slotted Bashin in tier 1, a lot of folks slotted him in tier 3, and then a few smatterings um, throughout the rest of FEOD. So
Right. I think like I said, in these first 5 stages, he can do 3 of them very easily, carrying slightly weaker people. So I think he is a very good budget pickup. A lot of people are probably still working on the early entropy stages. Bosch would help immensely. Or if you just want to free up stronger characters for
Right.
later, Bosch is a great pick.
Looking at the podcast polls for this banner, which I remind you was Vaan Full Kit EX, Bosch Full Kit EX, and Sarah 1535, we had 2 people willing to pity, 16 spent tickets on it, and 22 skipperoo. So not a huge banner. Of the people, not a lot of people with looking for Bosch EX. Everyone who voted on the Bosch EX was going to 3-3 him. No one just keep him EX. No one just realized him. Everyone was going to 3-3 him. Vaan was a little different, which is interesting because Bosch, I think, you can exist without 3-3. I wouldn't recommend it really, but Vaan, I think, really has to have 3-3. But 3 people were going to just keep it EX. And I think that's, if you're going to keep it EX, fine. Just keep it EX or 3-3 it. 8, we're going to just realize it. I think that's a waste of a book, very truthfully, unless you're just trying to get the extra ingot. And then only 4, we're going to 3-3 it. So it was one of those arrow. But yeah, so yeah, not a lot of interest in this banner, but I mean, it's not a bad banner. You have a decent mage DPS and an inch. I really like Bosch's kit. I mean, it's really interesting. It's just, it's just a little bit too lackluster, I think, in reality. So that does bring us to the Chaos fight. And again, Macnol's Call to Arms, MACNOL, C2A. Check that out on Reddit, and you can see who has brought what. This fight is annoying.
Can I take the lead on this fight?
Yeah, well, let me walk through what it is,
Sure.
and then you can talk about experience. It is a 2-wave fight. The first wave is 2 iron worms. Again, we're very familiar with iron worms. They are not the tankiest iron worms, so they do die pretty easily. But they are the things that do the brave gain and AoE HP attacks, the gravity spins. So that's just over and over and over again. Can get annoying if you don't manage it. And then Might Eater, which is a new boss, and he has 2 ads that he starts with. He starts the round. If you start the round, he immediately goes with Flash of Weakness, which lowers the party's HP to a very low amount. Is it half? It's significantly lower.
Shit, I don't know.
Anyway,
but what we do know,
it lowers it considerably. And then he moves, depending on where he is in his health wise, he has a very powerful attack called Energy Absorb, which absorbs all of the brave that you currently have, gives himself extra brave, and then does an HP attack. He has 3 different AoE HP attacks. That is his most dangerous one. And if you have any brave laying around, it's going to be very, very powerful. Can probably kill your entire party. Celes and Bosch, not Celes. Oh no, Celes can deal with this, can't she? Anyway,
she helps.
Yeah,
She's not terrible here.
Bosch is obviously designed for this, to absorb all the attacks on himself to survive being killed. This was fine. Y'shtola with her re-raise ability is fairly good here. But that can be problematic because he does do this string of AoE attacks. So if everyone dies and Y'shtola's at 1 with her last stand ability, she's at 1 HP, and she goes 2 times in a row. It may not be very good for you, especially if you don't have your EX available. So there were a couple different tactics to this. The one that I used was delaying the boss so he didn't get an action. The easiest way to do that was to actually summon the turn before you killed wave 1, and then going into wave 2, he did not automatically reduce your HP, and then bring in characters that can just do massive damage and turn delay. And I used Kistis, and I used a 5-turn Kistis, and gave him the turn rate down so that by the time I did come out of summon and by the time I did give him a turn, he used that first ability to lower all my HP, and then he was, 10, 11 turns before he would act again, and was able to kill him fairly easily. So that was the only action he took in my final attempt to kill it. So But obviously, if you have Bosch, Vaan does a ridiculous amount of damage in this. If you have him, Bosch kind of cheeses the fight, but it's definitely some synergy bias. To do that, I brought Y'shtola, Ultimecia, and Charlotta, and a friend Kistis. So again, using that those free turns and that massive damage. Yeah, Ice Pig is saying permanent paralyzation is permanent paralysis is possible as well. Yeah, you can continue to paralyze. Yeah, with all of our paralyzed characters, Cloud and Agrius. Who else am I thinking of? So anyway, what did you want to talk about, Mino?
Oh, you covered a good amount of it. But I was gonna say, well, this makes it easier for me. Adding on to what Mark said, there are several strategies to taking on this fight that I'll get around. But first, the general basis is the two Iron Worms, tons of AOE HP attack. The second wave, tons of AOE HP attack. Synergy bias is ridiculous because they have to go way out of their way to make Bosch look good. They have to reduce your max
And
HP. Yeah, they have to reduce your max HP so you can't just survive this, so that under most circumstances your party will get wiped without Bosch. And then they have to have back-to-back AoE HP attacks as well. Like I I don't know what that says about Bosch that a fight needs to be tuned so much around him, but also Vaan. I guess the only way to make Vaan look good is to make it a tight turn count and give him synergy and make the boss weak to all four of his elements. He does so much damage in this fight. Kreese and I were talking about how people with Vaan running the same teams as people without Vaan shaves off like 20 to 30 turns because he's just hitting for max damage every turn. It's really, really ridiculous. So, to cover really quick, uh, Mark said that he likes to summon before going into wave 2. I went with a different strategy, but the concept is to delay the HP down, but also to make sure you're healed up before it hits, because apparently it tunes to your current HP. So if you're at like half health and you take the HP down, suddenly you're at like 3k HP and you can't complete the fight because you're locked out of the HP requirement already after what was downsized. So make sure you're healed up going into wave 2. I went with the permanent paralysis strategy. So I actually waited to summon so I could get more turns out of my summon and get more bang out of my buck. I did it so that he didn't get a single turn off, but you need a lot more DPS for that. And there are, I think, 4 ways to tackle this fight. And I listed them from least effective to most effective. Least effective is first, you do huge damage with lots of characters here. You got Vaan and Locke synergy. You have Charlotta and Ultimecia for the burst. The best way is to just brute force through this, do as much damage as possible so the boss gets as little turns as possible. The second strategy is stuns, delays, and paralysis. You've got Cloud, you've got Agrius, and the silence nullifies his big attack yet. Did you talk about the absorb HP? I mean,
Yeah.
absorb attack,
Yeah.
Mark?
Mhm.
Where, where it's 100% based on how much brave your party has. So you want to reduce.
Which makes using Y'shtola and Charlotta dangerous if you give it turns, because
Right.
they don't have a lot of, well, and it absorbs earth, so Y'shtola's stone ability actually gives it brave, but the way you do that is that's fine because she unbreaks it and gives it brave, and then somebody like Vaan or Ultimecia breaks it and delays it another turn. So you're
Right.
getting extra delay. That's how you're able to delay it so much.
The best thing is when its defense keeps rising throughout the fight, Stone's only giving it back like 4k brave.
Exactly.
At
Even
a point.
at that point,
it's just
point,
so
yeah.
easy. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's part of the great delay strat. Ish is great for it because you push the turn back, give it just enough so that the next person breaks and pushes it back even more. So with the stuns, paralyze, and delays, you have Y'shtola, you have Cloud, you have Agrius, you have Quistis, you have Null. Null works great here too. His delay is ice, which the boss is weak to. So he
Oh.
does very good damage
And he
here.
ignores defense with his other abilities. So
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So he's a great pick for this. So that's the second uh, worst strategy. The second best strategy is bring Bosch, because then you don't have to worry about any of this. You know, you just he has the huge telegraphed HP attacks, just taunt, and you're good. And then the best strategy is to put HP artifacts on all your characters, and then you're set. You just put you give each of your characters one HP plus 1,000, and you will live through these, no problem. And
I'm gonna try that.
yeah, try it because it works so well. I think Charlotte in our Discord said she did that and she didn't have to worry about the mechanic as well. Like it really is just that effective. But either way, I have really mixed feelings on this fight because just like all other early chaos fights, it's about how can I avoid this if I don't have synergy, how do I avoid the mechanics of this fight as much as possible? Paralyzed delay cheese has been a thing since Chaos launched till now. It's run rampant in events. And after the entropy fights, where you really can't do that because the fights are so long, you're forced to deal with the mechanics. I really love the entropy fights now. I really like that you have to work around the mechanics, build a team around the mechanics. Right now, it's a lot of ulti-ish Agrius blowing them out of the water before they get a turn. I want to hate Bosch for being like that, but also at this point, you have a ton of options. Yeah, I just named like over a dozen characters that can work on this fight. We've seen a lot of variety to it because now we just have so many delays, so many damage dealers, and like even HP damage reduction. We've got Bosch and Porum. Porum works for it too if you don't want to pull for Bosch. There's a lot of options, and I wanted to say this fight was frustrating that you just wanted to skip the mechanics, but I've personally actually run this a few times just to see what characters can work.
Yeah.
So I have very mixed feelings about it. Like I feel like they lowered the HP compared to past chaoses so that you could experiment a lot with a wider roster and character selection. But also I still think the mechanic is real bullshit and the synergy bias is extreme. Kreese, do you have any thoughts to add on to that?
I think you've hit on all the important things. I have not gone back and tried this again since my blind workings on it last night, where I just got the clear and gave up after that. I was trying this using Leash, Ishtola, and Ferris. Ferris with the idea that, well, she'll hit weakness elements, so she'll work well here for protecting everyone from breaks. Ishtola because of the unbreak, rebreak, delay mechanic, and Least because I was trying to make her work. That was basically it. And I had a lot of trouble with this fight, mostly because I could not ignore the mechanics, so I had to deal with them. To the point where I think on my clear run, I was full party wiped twice, with the only reason I kept going because Ishtola has last stand. It would immediately revive the party, and then we'd start from point one again and just try to struggle through it. So it was a rough fight for me. And that was mostly because I didn't understand how his AoE HP attacks work, so I couldn't predict properly which HP attack was coming when. And that really screwed me up because I could not predict correctly which one I needed to be at low brave for, which one I needed to be at high brave for.
Let me get that because we were talking about it before the show. The last thing I forgot to mention about this boss is you can make his pattern predictable. Every 25% HP you do, the text comes up and he gets those invisible buffs. I forgot what the text is, but the text bubble comes up saying he's doing something.
It says he's getting hungry or he's opening his mouth.
Yeah, opening his mouth. He does that every 25%. Every time it happens, no matter what he's doing or targeting, he'll automatically change to the absorb one next.
Yeah, when he opens his mouth, it's the absorb attack. Right.
Yes. So you can make him predictable to avoid that headache that Kreese encountered.
Shout out to Hiromura Cat, fellow streamer with us here in chat. So check out Hiromura Cat on Twitch. He's just always has chill streams. Appreciate his insights to the game. And if you're feeling good about how many gems you have, go watch him and you'll not for very long. So so good luck with everybody. JR Dallas is saying, one of our folks on our Discord, part of our community, says this fight's okay because it's short. You don't have to waste 10 minutes clearing 4 waves before the interesting one. I do like the 2-wave chaos. I like a setup wave, and this setup wave was easy enough to let you kind of set your characters up a little bit. And the 2-wave fights, yeah, the 5 waves of trash gets a little old, but you have to take it how it comes. Yes, seeking energy is the predictive text. Thank you, Hate 13. All right, anything else with Bosch? I know.
I guess this is worth mentioning. I don't know how much is worth mentioning. Apparently, old guides say Bosch wants attack 108 and HP 1020 for his artifacts. Apparently, after his latest JP update with his LD, it's turned into attack 108, max brave 330. So, for any hardcore artifact farmers out there who
I
wanted
thought
that update, that's good to know.
the infographic suggested the 2-star C50 ability
Oh
and
yeah,
attack
that
108,
also gets
which gives him
the
additional HP. Yep.
right, the additional HP. But apparently now in
In
JP they're
Japan with
making a quick
his
switch.
in Japan he
LD.
got a LD weapon, yes, and so M Brave I think is the suggestion right now. So
Right,
yeah,
basically, you need it. They wanted the HP to give that cushion for the last stand
right.
because he has to be above 50%, and he heals more with more HP. But in Japan, he got it so that he has a move that always heals him to 50% whenever he drops.
Yeah.
So HP is not a factor anymore.
But I think you're talking 8 months from now. I think if you're going to use Bosch
That's true.
today, focusing on his C50 attack 108 or HP 1020 or 1040, those are going to be your predominant, and max brave 330. I mean, you pick what you can get, but probably right now perfect artifacts would be attack 108, C50 2-star. So yeah. Yeah, Cedra is saying, why does anyone with Last Stand need HP? Well, that's a good comment too.
One last thing I'll mention about Bosch's Chaos event is if you happen to die after the boss does its max HP down effect and you revive, you actually go back to your regular max HP value. I found that out
Fun.
after dying multiple times.
I completely forgot you're told to revive characters. So I went
the reason I brought her, I figured I'd have to revive
I went
on
through
my
the
blind
fight
event.
several times and then realized, oh wait, she revives characters, and then I just killed it before it acted. So I retweaked my strategy there. But like, oh yeah, she actually does a revive. That's very interesting. Well, moving on to just recap or look back at Dimension End entropy. Last week we just got entropy. It was kind of a surprise, and so we had just had some like less than 24 hours to really focus on it. Mino and I had gotten to silver plates, but we had not, and we had been able to clear tier 5, but we had not been able to perfect tier 5. Thankfully, it was about another day or so. Mino and I were both able to perfect tier 5, so we both have gold plates without using the exploit. I believe Kreese now with some of his new acquisitions has gained in some tiers as well. Did you guys want to add anything? I know as of right now...
I'll just mention that I have, as of this recording, only perfected tier 1 and tier 2. I'm kind of struggling with tier 3 because my options right now are wait for more characters or go back and unlock characters from tier 1.
Right.
And I'd rather not unlock characters from tier 1 at the moment.
As of right now, only 15% of players have cleared tier 5. So I believe looking at tier 1, and again, that's not perfect, that's clear, and that is people who have just started. So you actually have to get into entropy, unlock entropy, and actually start a fight in entropy tier 1 to even be included in that percent. And only 54% of players who have gotten to that point where they've actually gotten into entropy and started the first fight have been able to clear that first tier. So, challenging material, challenging fights. We've been having a lot of fun. Mino and I may have expended a little extra resources than we had planned, and have to come back from that. But again, the first tier 5s came at us all at once. Now we're going to be getting about 1 tier a month added onto that, and a lot of refocusing. So for example, now I got Bosch. I can go back and do tier 1 with Bosch and unlock Ramza or Agrius. Or, tier 3, I have Ultimecia, Warrior of Light, and Lilizette. I could probably use Bosch instead of Warrior of Light if I wanted to bring him at a later thing. So that's kind of the fun with it. You can keep playing with it and keep, optimizing your team as best you see fit. Or all of those awesome characters that we're about to get moving on. So that does bring us to, anything else about entropy, guys? I'm sorry. I don't want to move on without giving you a chance to talk.
I just wanted to say the lesson I learned was to be on top of your board farming. Literally, the only thing that held me back from an earlier clear was board farming. Mark said that last recording we were at silver, and it took me another day to get gold. That whole day was spent board farming. So, I think I've learned my lesson, and I'll be a little more proactive on that grind from here on out. But also, Mark's talking about re-clears. That's the sucker's way. I'm just gonna pull 3 meta characters every month.
Yeah.
The most used characters for tier 6 are Yuna, Emperor, and Rosa. All I have to do is pull every month 3 characters, and I'll be set. No more re-clears for me. I'm joking, of course, but my point is that all of the tiers are super biased towards whoever came out this month. Like, if you look at all the data, it's all the top 3 characters used are always ones that came out right before the tier. So be aware
That
of
could
that.
be a little bit of selection bias, though, because those are going to be the newest hotness. They're going to be the characters that are most likely not locked to earlier tiers of the Dimensions End stages. So they're more likely to be used first and foremost.
That's fair too, but from what I have been hearing though, like a lot of JP players I talk to, when they say, "Oh, a new tier is announced," whenever they announce a new tier, they say this is the tier's gimmick, like debuff immune or magic resistant, and et cetera, et cetera. And then how they strategize is they're like, "Well, what characters came out this month that they're kind of aiming for?" And I think that makes a lot of sense. But you're right; it could be a lot of selection bias as well. So everyone take whatever we just said with a grain of salt, I guess. My thing is,
That's not to say that the newer characters, like probably Emperor, is going to do wonders in tier 6, and Rose is going to do wonders in tier 6. But Rose and Emperor, from everything I've heard, would do wonders no matter where they ended up. It's just that tier 6 did not
pretty much
make
anywhere.
them not.
tier 6 is supposed to be ridiculous with the amount of debuffs it inflicts on you, which is why Yuna is the top pick for that one, as she is a recent power creep that can get rid of debuffs. So something to keep in mind going forward, I guess.
Well, Macnol of Macnol's Call to Arms fame just posted in Twitch that my arch nemesis Fires just got 9,999 or 900,999 score in the Captain's Loyalty Chaos with Ultimecia, Charlotta, Friend Charlotta, Warrior of Light 3-3. So congratulations to my arch nemesis. I hate you, and I hate that you always get those 9s across the board. And I'm just going to have to live with that. Or I'm going to go do that myself. No, but he was the first. And he's always very good. So go check out Fires, Firezz on YouTube. Very, very talented player. And always has very high scores. So if that's what you're looking for, Fires can help you out. I don't know him, but he is my arch nemesis. It's one of those things. All right, so moving on to host discussion. I don't know we had much today to talk about, but question that we got is, do ingots matter if you aren't doing chaos? Am I forced to do chaos to get ingots? Well, what if I don't care about chaos? Do I need ingots at all? That's the question.
Right.
What do you guys think?
I would say, so I plucked this. I've seen this asked many times, but a lot of people were saying that they're getting disheartened over the game because of chaos and its ridiculous difficulty for the more casual player. And they said, all I wanted to do was collect characters and use FF characters I loved to kill things. And now chaos comes and ruins all that fun. And then a lot of people were saying, well, chaos is optional endgame content. And then they rebut with, well, it's not optional because you need to do it to get ingots. So, I mean, but that's a catch 22, right? So, like, why do you care about ingots if you don't want to do chaos? I think if you're a more casual player who just wants to collect characters, doing just EXs and Cosmos and raids and co-ops, you can still get a lot of mileage out of the game. So that's where this question's coming from. Mark, do you have a take on that?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I just doing the content, so the chocobo boards and then some of the bonuses we've gotten, you're going to get enough books and ingots or nuggets and pages to actually fully realize some of your favorites. So really, you only need to complete the chaoses if you want to do more chaoses or partake in Dimension's End entropy, which gives you more ingots to invest in more characters, which you need to do more tiers of entropy. So no, you don't need to get the ingots. You will be able to have some ingots and some books for your favorite characters, and they will be able to help you through some chaoses, all Cosmos. I mean, any of your, if you have a fully realized 3/3 character, especially someone who's really good like Rosa, like Emperor, like Zack, they're going to get you through most Cosmos fights without a problem at all, depending on what the the mechanics of that fight are. So yeah, no, I mean, if you're not worried about it, you're going to be able to play the game and have a good time and still be able to fully upgrade. I mean, that's the nice thing about this compared to so many other games. It is so hard to. A lot of other gacha games make it very, very difficult to fully upgrade, fully level, fully whatever the characters you want to use. Either really rare resources, or you have to get dupes of the characters and gacha, or you just have to grind forever like Pokemon Masters, to a point where it's just not fun whatsoever. Someday I'll use all of my gems in that stupid game and be able to delete it. That's what I'm waiting for. I was hoping with Dragon Knight coming out today that I would burn through all my gems, but because I don't play it at all, I had like 50,000 gems just from all the free gems they'd given us, and I only used 3 pulls and I got the stupid Dragon Knight. So yeah, so I'm hoping Cynthia takes my stash and I can just quit that dumb game because I hate it so much. It's such a bad game.
You know you can quit that dumb game without having to spend your stash,
I
right?
I would just feel better if I didn't have any gems. Like I'm like,
Okay.
oh, I didn't get that character I want. I can quit. Oh, be done.
Let me address chat because Macnol and Katsufumi are bringing up the common counter argument of, well, a lot of gameplay is locked behind ingots because EX plus realizations are indeed like extra gameplay, extra things in the character's kit that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. Yes, that's true, but the majority of the ingots are gotten just by logging in, doing the choco boards and doing the raids. Like they're very accessible. A lot of it is permanent content. Um, you've got Dimensions End, you've got the LCs. There's so much of the content is permanent. The only thing you're missing if you don't regularly do chaos is what is it like
It's the
3/4
event
of an ingot? Yeah,
chaos
three.
event,
Yeah,
so
like
it's half of an ingot a month.
yeah, or let's say there might be a raid chaos in there sometimes, or like
Well, I guess there'll be an awakening chaos every other
right,
month. Or
right.
every month, yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so let's say you're missing 3/4 of an ingot a month, to be conservative, if you aren't on top of chaos. So basically, if you just consider free ingots every month, you get about 2 to 3 free ingots a month through choco boards and missions and raids and co-ops, and that's also not counting what you can get from books. So basically, every month you could realistically 3/3 two EX plus weapons. And if you're smart about it and you're like, oh, well, I can't do chaos now, you can either still favorite you can still MLB your favorites and play the game just fine, or you can hoard them and wait until there's a surge of strong characters on the verge of the next power creep, grab those, continue on. Like, I don't think you'd fall very far behind if you don't push yourself to get every nugget in the game, and you can catch up very easily and still play your favorites without losing too much.
Being on the other end of the spectrum, where I've actually been struggling a lot since the Chaos era began, I'll also highlight another thing that I've been doing to make sure I don't miss those time-limited nuggets. You only need to clear the Chaos events, which means you can gem revive as much as you need to if you're just fed up with it and you just want to get the clear done. For the time-limited events, for the entropy stuff, for Dimension's End, you need to perfect it, which means gem reviving won't get you through. But for the stuff where those nuggets can disappear after a certain amount of time, you can just gem revive, and it's 100 gems to gem revive once. And almost always, if you brought a team that is at least reasonably geared, that's enough to get through the fight, unless you really screwed up bad. So even if you don't want to deal with the nuances of chaos and getting the perfects or the completes on every fight, you can still do the gem revives to get the nuggets so you don't miss the limited time rewards there.
I will say this: every day on social media, I see, hey, I've got, I want to know who I should spend my ingots on, or who should I spend my books on. And you talk to people, and they're like, well, okay, well, how many ingots do you have? Well, I have three. Who should I spend them on? So I think part of the issue, in the reality of realizations and chaos era and ingots is most people want to get them and use them, and that's fine, but they're not that plentiful that you just want to throw them as soon as you get them. You probably want to keep a few, or at least have a plan looking ahead of where you're going to spend them, because then when that next big character comes out and you can't use him because you've spent all your ingots, it might be a big problem. But yeah, I mean, it's like every single day, oh, I got three ingots burning a hole in my pocket. I mean, it's like my kids when my kids have allowance money, right? You give your kids allowance. My kids are little, and they got to spend that money right away, right? Instead of saying, well, if you really want this, then you have to save your money, right? It's this just kind of thing that instinctually we want to use what we have as opposed to kind of save, or plan, invest, all that kind of stuff. So that's just an observation. Play however the hell you want. I don't care. But
Do we want to?
I have a hell of a lot more than three ingots. So
Dude, yeah, I made a lot too.
I have a lot of nuggets.
Dimensions End is really the primary source for ingots, and it's permanent, so you can just take your time on that. It's like a snowball effect. I've heard of a JP player who didn't even touch entropy until the next wave of power creeps, which is General Leo and Galif. Once he got Galif, then he tackled it, then he blew through like all 7 or 8 of them and got his stat. Like, there is no rush, to be honest.
That's why I've been sitting and waiting and not trying to push too hard through entropy, because I know it's not going anywhere. Once I get stronger characters, I'll be able to go back and get the nuggets and the ingots.
Squex Joshua is saying he hasn't even started Dimensions End or finished Abyss. Well, I guess he's...
All right, look at the patience on that man. Look at the patience on that man.
He's waiting for Kefka's burst weapon to get into all of those.
and I think we have just a little bit of time to tackle our last question, which is the one that we want to talk about for a while: ingot splitting, right? No more half measures into these EX plus weapons. You want to cover that?
Yeah. So what's the question?
So to introduce, basically, early on in Chaos, everyone said that everyone was asking, what is the optimal amount of ingots to invest in every EX plus weapon? They're like, should I 1-3 this character? Should I 2-3 this character? Etc. And then I think a lot of us were talking, especially Strafe, who was probably the cause of this problem because he makes those videos talking about optimal ingot investment, and now he's changing his mind. He's saying, you know what, I might kill this line of videos soon. But basically, everyone's asking, what is the minimal amount of ingots I need to invest into this EX plus to make it good? And I think finally we're at the point where we're reaching a consensus. Basically, 0-3 if you're not going to use it, 3-3 if you are going to use it. And it's basically just come down to that, because you don't want to be using character kits incomplete anymore. And as the EX Plus era carries on, Square Enix gets better and better at balancing these EX Plus level ups so that the last step is always a huge power boost, the biggest perhaps. Do you have anything to add to that, Mark?
I'm, I'm talking to the chat, so no,
All right, Kreese, cover
no, no,
for
no,
it.
no. I agree. I think moving forward, with limited exceptions, I think I've said this before. You're pretty much going to go all in on a character or just book them. And you need to use books eventually just to get more ingots anyway. So you are going to be booking characters and booking EXs that you're just going to kind of use, kind of slotted in different things. But yeah, Shiro's saying, one ingot for Lilizette. My Lilizette is one ingot. In that case, for a support character, that her one ingot ability gives her, that boost that she needs. That works out. And there's going to be several other characters like that. But yeah, moving forward, I mean, Vaan, for example, you have to use him 3-3. I mean, it's just a waste of ingots. It's even a waste of a book if you're not going to, invest in him fully, unless you're just trying to get an extra ingot, because he really needs that. Ultimisha is the same way. She really needs it. A whole bunch of other characters are. Warrior of Light, no. Warrior of Light, depending on what you need, you could use them at, anything. But you're going to see less and less of those characters moving forward. These characters that we're getting are going to be built to be fully realized. Their mechanics are going to be locked behind that full realization. And that's, and you're going to want them. I mean, just like Bosch. I mean, yeah, you don't have to fully realize him, but, he was designed for that. So he's going to be most useful when...
You can see it with newer reworks coming out with EX realizations at the same time. Vaan is the biggest example of this. He does not get an HP plus unless you at least book him. He does not get a good HP plus unless you 3-3 him. He needs that because of his longevity issues. And that's going to be more and more common, where characters are going to have more and more of their power locked behind their EX realizations, and you have to consider that.
Hold on. I gotta interrupt, because the Real Zidane says in chat, I am not free to play, but I have never pitied a single EX weapon yet, because I've never reached that amount of G tokens and pulls before I had to pity, and I do not like the G token system. Whoa! So you're telling me you're so you're so lucky. I mean, let me put it in perspective. You're so lucky that you've never had to pity. But
no, you're missing part of the conversation. Early on, he was saying that he was complaining that he missed some characters' EX weapons and he didn't like the low drop rates. And I countered, well, if you are at the point where you're not having luck, then that's what the EX pity system is for. There's an upper limit on how many gems you have to spend to get that EX weapon. And he's countering, I've never pitied a single EX weapon because he never reaches that amount of G tokens, with the implicit point being that he will never spend that amount of gems on a single banner.
I mean, that's fair, but it's nice to have a bottom line, I guess. As you said, it is so nice to, with a game of pure RNG and my infamous story of 145k gems and not getting what I wanted, 75k gems to guarantee what I want is a miracle, I think. Like, I'm sure nothing
Josh
to hate about this
system. Would have preferred to have that system in place when he was going for Kefka on stream.
That's a 35 CP. Yeah. Addressing chat, a lot of people have a lot to say about this. Cedra Game says, like, a unit is at their best and built to be 3-3. Penny pinching and of ingot and that kind of macro gaming just isn't needed. Just make good decisions on who to 3-3 and who to skip. Right, because I think if you're just going 1-3, 2-3, you're wasting ingots. You're not getting the most out of their kit. This is the equivalent of back in the day when people said, do I need the 15 CP for this character? For really early characters, like, once again, Warrior of Light, no, you didn't, because they weren't built like that. But after a while, all the characters are built, so you need everything. They got better at building characters.
Yeah, Ramu's making a good point about you need more than just fully realized characters to complete Dimensions End. And I agree 100%. That's why, You have characters like Charlotta and Ramza who are really good just with their EXs right now. You have characters like Warrior of Light who can just be booked. Vincent I used who can just be booked. People were using Machina 0 out of 3, Ace 0 out of 3, Lily 1 out of 3. Yeah, so I mean, it's you definitely want realized characters. But I think if all of your characters are 1 out of 2, 2 out of 2, and you're just kind of haphazardly spending them, it can be a problem. I think most characters who you want to use, for your kind of big hitters, especially your high DPSs, are going to be 3 out of 3. Now, some of them you might be able to get by 2 out of 3, yes, but again, why get by 2 out of 3 when you at that point spend the third one? I can see the argument for 0 out of 3 or 1 out of 3 a lot easier than 2 out of 3, unless there's a specific support character that does just need their 2 out of 3. And again, we talk about each of that, so yeah. Anything else on that?
No, let's go to
it
the.
seems like it's a waste to invest less than 3 ingots if you're going to invest any ingots in a character right now, because it just is such a power boost.
Yeah.
And I would rather save those individual ingots for fully realizing a single weapon than trying to spread them out. So I agree with you guys.
But again, I mean, when it's coming to chaos and the turn counts are tight and the score requirements are tight and the longer you let the boss live, it's a bad thing. Everything helps. So, for example, Squall, his 3 out of 3 makes his EX ability much more powerful. That helps. Having perfect arts helps. Having his World of Illusion weapon helps. Having all of his other weapons obviously helps. Adding a sphere, like I was struggling on tier 5, I added spheres to Squall. That just gave him that extra push to get those extra turn requirements, so I was able to use them effectively, as was farming good arts and everything else. Jin Lee, who does all of our backgrounds and graphics, and our logo, he's one of our best players. He's very, very good. You can watch his Jin Lee, watch his videos on YouTube. You will see he always has near perfect arts on his characters. He spends a lot of time grinding arts. I know Hero Cat spends a lot of time grinding arts too. But that makes a huge, huge difference. Those little bits of stats increased, the extra armor, realizing your armor for that extra boost. Somebody was saying, "Oh, I didn't realize when you realized your armor, you got that extra boost." You do. All of those things shave off turns. All of those things give your enemies less turns. Yeah, I mean, it's that's just the, so why would you, it's almost like handicapping, especially a DPS character. And that's my main, I'm talking about damage dealers. You're almost handicapping them by going 2 out of 3 in most cases. Or completely nerfing them in like Vaan's instance. Vaan he's just almost useless without his 3 out of 3. Somebody fight me on that and go, beat some nonsense.
We should be clear that when we say they're mostly useless, we mean in chaos content.
Yes,
we don't mean in
the
general.
most difficult.
Vaan will still be useful at 0 out of 3, booked only in like Cosmos content, for example.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So yeah, good stuff. Keep the questions alive. You can go to our Discord, tccpodcast.com, to get the invite. We do have a section about podcasts, and there are questions. You can ask questions. We love answering questions. We love talking about this game. It gives us a lot to talk about. It's been a good show today. With that,
sometimes have time to answer questions.
Yeah, it's nice to have time to answer questions. We had a lot of surprises last week. Thank you, Square Enix Joshua, for all those surprises. We look forward to the mobile stream on Monday, I believe. So do check out Square Enix's or Squex's mobile stream, which I believe will be Monday the 30th. Is that correct? 30th? Anyway, it's Monday here in the United States. You can make sure you check their Twitter. And the official Twitter is at Dissidia FFOO, I believe. And that will, yes.
We are getting confirmation. It will be Monday, next Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard
because
Time.
Of reasons. So that would be a little earlier than normal. Usually it's at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so a little earlier, which is fine.
Mino's gonna have to take an early lunch
Yep,
break for that.
Mino's gonna have to take an early lunch break, so
Nope,
do
took the
check
day
that
off,
out.
so I will actually be able to watch
Yeah.
the stream live. My internet at work is so crappy. Well, first of all, it's blocked on my work computer for some reason. I don't know why they would block Twitch, but I try to use my phone. It doesn't work. So all I do when the stream is running is stare at our stream slide channel on our Discord.
Did you send
And
Joshua and Glacy official TCC shirts so that they can wear them on stream? Mino.
oh, I ordered him, but I don't think they got there just yet. I think shipping over the holiday.
Yeah, no,
So
shipping over the
unfortunately,
holidays.
they might. Yeah, it's terrible. So first of all, I doubt Josh would even humor us to wear it on stream. Unless Josh, you want to talk unofficially, would you ever wear our shirts on stream? But the second thing is, it's not going to reach them on time. Sadly,
No.
I really wanted it to reach them before Christmas, but
Yeah.
holiday shipping. Anyways, please stay tuned.
Such an evasive answer, Joshua.
It's possible. It's possible. Anyway, looking ahead, we do have the community stream on Monday, and we assume, we don't know, nothing's been announced at this point, but we assume we'll have the following events coming up over the next month. A new batch of Awakenings, which would include realizations for the Leading Man and the Kate Sith, or Kate She, however you want to pronounce it. Barrett's Lost Chapter is on tap, as is Kamari Event, as is the Ultimate Brothers, as is Rose's Lost Chapter, as is Emperor's Event. So that was the order in Japan. It is always subject to change, and that's why we will wait till the Square Enix mobile stream and find out for ourselves. And we'll be talking about that every week as we do, sharing our thoughts and opinions, sometimes having special guests, sometimes not, and chatting with 80 to 100 of you, or several hundred who stop by in and out throughout the couple hours that we're on. So thank you all for joining us live. Thank you, the hundreds and hundreds of you who do listen to this podcast. Some of you, this is your only DFO information during the week, and so we just feel honored and privileged that you come to us for your DFO needs. Hopefully we can answer them effectively. So please do, reach out to us, tccpodcast.com. You can get all of our information, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, Twitch, YouTube. We just enjoy doing that and enjoy sharing with all of you and enjoying the community here. So for myself, Mark, for Mino Spellgood, for Kreese, aka Zerank, we wish you all happy holidays, happy new year, good luck with all your pulls, and goodbye.